Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who's built momentum in his business by doing the fundamentals exceptionally well. Casting a wide net, staying consistent, and earning trust over time. He's grown by focusing on purchase business, helping agents look great in front of their clients, and staying top of mind through social media, weekly calls, and a consistent weekly newsletter. A strong representative of growth through relationships, systems, and smart delegation. Gabe Kopun, welcome to the Lowdown.
Thanks for having me, Connor.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to have you here. I know we're going to have a great conversation. It's been great getting to know you and kind of talking leading up to this episode. And something that's really stuck out to me just through our conversations is this philosophy of casting a wide net, just staying focused on the basics, right? Cast a wide net, do good work, let trust compound over time. How has that, or how does that mindset shape the way you show up every week in your business?
Yeah, I think it makes it easier for me personally. I think that, individual relationships are great, but I really take an approach where I want to focus on making sure that as many people know what I do and how to find me as possible. So casting a wide net for me is trying to stay in front of my realtor partners, or any other person that I think that could help me in my business. I want them to know how to find me, email, phone call, text message, online. That's just really important. To be seen and be known makes doing business easier or making sales easier for myself.
Yeah, and I think it's a great it's a great call out. And in this industry, something that's always struck me is how accessible people are with cell phone numbers out there and things like that. But there are individuals that do it a lot better than others at kind of putting themselves out there and really making sure that the community knows what they do, to your point. So, on that kind of track, how has social media played a role in that? Because I know that's how I found you. I think there was a post that you did on Facebook that I just thought was really entertaining or educational, and it made me kind of look you up a little bit more and find out who you are. So, how has that really played a role in the way you've expanded?
Yeah, so social media is, I think it's something that can be a really useful tool, and it can also be a time suck. I personally am not a big fan of social media itself, but it's a necessary component of our business these days. So for me, social media is just a way to be seen and be known. And, you put content out there, whatever that may be, whether it's educational or entertaining or a good mix of both. And, we all love to get as many likes and views and comments as we can, but a lot of times you don't get as much as you want, but you never really know who's lurking there and who sees what. And so it's something that I continue to learn and continue to try and improve on. And it's been helpful in my business so that people know who I am, and that makes that phone call introduction easier down the road if that ever presents itself.
Yeah, there's this whole shadow audience on social media that you have no idea is following along and watching. But then one day you get a phone call and I saw that post you made about such and such, and that's me, and I'm in that situation and I need your help, or something like that. And 9 times out of 10, it's someone who never engaged with any of your content. And so it's always interesting to see how that plays out. But I guess kind of moving on, you place a big emphasis on making the agent look good during the transaction. And I know that sounds really fundamental, but you're being very intentional about that. What does that look like in practice? And, why has that mattered to you so much?
Yeah, I think that when you're working in real estate, it's definitely a team transaction. Everyone's working for their own benefits, or working to help the client, but at the same time, it's a great way to stay in constant contact if I focus on trying to make the agent look good. And that's something that I want them to pick up on without me necessarily telling them that that's my goal. Marketing and relationship building with value, looks like I'm going to reach out and communicate with that agent, with both agents on the transaction, the buyer's agent and the seller's agent, every week, so that if if their customer asks them what's going on, they're going to know just like that. Like, that's really important. And if they're working with someone that doesn't communicate well, they could be asking questions like, "Hey, when is my appraisal coming back?" And they're going to have no idea, and then they don't look good. So I want them to look good, and I want to make it easy for them. And my philosophy is, if the agent has to reach out to me and ask a question about where we are in the process, then I haven't done my job. So I think that when they look good and they see how easy it is, they're more likely to give me an opportunity to work with them or just come back themselves.
Yeah, I love that. And just giving credit along the way, kind of sharing those hero stories, I think that makes a huge difference. And when you can make the agent feel comfortable, and when the process goes well and you give the agent the credit, then it's like they love that, the client loves that, more referrals for everyone, everyone wins.
That's right.
So you're staying top of mind kind of with this three-prong approach of social media, then like a weekly call schedule and this newsletter that you've been putting out. How did you land on that approach, and how do those pieces sort of work together?
Yeah, I don't know necessarily how I landed on that approach. Over the years, you just figure out what works for you, and you have mentors over time, and you pick up one thing or from this person or that person, and I think it's really important to find someone in the industry that inspires you or a mentor, and then you kind of take a little bit of their process and blend it with your own, make it your own. So for me, like step one is like be seen and be known, and like social media. Best part about that is that makes that easier for us, right? That's a great way to go, and you friend your past clients, you follow your past clients, you follow the realtor partners that you work with or the ones you want to work with, and like over time that compounds. They continue to see you put out good content, they visit your profile and they see, oh, this person has their stuff together, they know what they're doing, they're professional. So that's like soft marketing. I think that's how you kind of like lay it on in advance, so that when I follow up in the future or they find me, there's something for them to get to know me a little bit where they feel like they know me even if we haven't met. The call schedule is difficult for some people, and myself, I'm no different. But you have to stay in touch regularly, so you have to figure out a repeatable schedule that you can scale, or that you could implement or give it to someone else that could take over for you. And for me, I have a list of however many partners I work with, and I'm going to try and touch on them, maybe once a month or once a quarter, and you can scale that how you want, but they need to hear from you regularly, in order for them to remember who you are, because it's really easy for someone else to step into your spot, and whether they like you or don't like you, they may just forget about you if you're not in constant contact. So that's important, which goes into my final point on this specific topic, is that weekly newsletter. I try to send something every Friday that gives a little bit of a market update. Why did interest rates do this? Where are rates? What are we expecting in the future for the trajectory of where they're going? Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can at least break down what I know that caused rates to do this or that. And I like to send it on Fridays so that my partners have something going into the weekend, so that when they quote a general rate to their clients, they're somewhere in line with what that client can expect. The last thing we want to do is make things look better than they really are or worse, and so that's important to me. Yeah, that's really all I have for that.
Yeah. Well, so the thing I love about the newsletter is, your weekly calls may end up in voicemail. You may not get a chance to talk to that realtor that week, but the newsletter is going to hit their inbox every Friday as expected. It's going to deliver some relevant value to them that they can use when they're talking with their buyers and clients, and they'll remember you for it. And even if you didn't talk that week, they see your name in their inbox. There's just that constant reminder that just keeps showing up, and the message it sends is, "Hey, Gabe is a consistent guy. Like, this is somebody that I can rely on to deliver, because every week he shows up in my inbox with something that I can use." And there's just like a subliminal message that you're sending by doing that. So I think that's a really smart strategy. It's something that uh, crept up onto my radar 2 years ago as something that was being used in mortgage, and I just think it's really smart. And you mentioned, I wanted to drill into this a little bit. You mentioned influences and kind of the inputs of people that are around you. Who are your mortgage influences? Are there people or teams or anyone that like really has made a big impact on you career wise?
Yeah, I mean, those kind of change over time. I've had a lot of good mentors, and it can be as simple as if you're in a loan officer and you're in an office with other LOs, or there's someone on your team and they're the big hitter on the team. Like, those are the people that I try to hang around and like just like absorb a little bit of their swagger or their lingo or how they carry themselves, their processes. That's really important. I think that coaching is also important. You know, I personally have been a member of Go Coaching, which has helped me grow my business a little bit more since I started doing it. You know, I've always been a pretty good producer within my own right, but at some point you need fresh ideas and you need someone to tell you that you could do more, or that you need to change this or that or refine it, because sometimes it's just hard to recognize what needs to change to get to that next level if that's your goal.
Yeah. And so as you're growing, a common challenge that I've talked with a lot of loan officers about is just this burnout, right? Like doing so much all at once. There's a lot of, there's always a lot to do. So, how have the routines and the rhythms kind of helped you stay consistent without overcomplicating things and kind of putting you into that burnout zone?
Yeah, I think that in sales, there's so many different ways to be effective, or so many shiny objects, so to speak, that we can chase, new techniques. But it really goes back down to the basics of being consistent, being personable, and knowing how to be found. So, like, I've burnt myself out trying to do too many things multiple times, and I'll probably continue to do so. I love trying new things. The mistake that I often make is I try to do something new and then I don't stick with it, and maybe I shouldn't have tried that in the first place. So my belief and my recommendation would be like focus on your core activities that you can maintain. You know, like for me, like it's those three basic things that I constantly do. Like I follow that social, I do that repeatable call schedule, I do that newsletter. So I'm going to do those no matter what every single week. And if I want to try some new things, maybe I will and hopefully work that in permanently. But at least, if nothing else, I'm doing those consistent things. You know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Add
Yeah.
more, but stay true to your identity.
So, how do you recognize when it's time to say, all right, time to give up on this? Because I think a misconception of hustle culture or what have you is like, don't quit, never give up. But there is a good time. Like there are times where quitting is the right move. So like when do you
Yeah.
recognize, what are the signals for you when it's like time to move on from this? This isn't working.
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer to that question. It's kind of just like trusting my gut. Like, for one, if I don't enjoy doing it, or like I really don't like doing it, that's either something I'm going to try to delegate, or I'm just not going to do it. Like, you can't force yourself to do things that you don't enjoy consistently. You could make it a habit, but for me, if it's not something I want to do anymore, I stop. And sometimes if I don't see any results, you know, I'll stop doing it. I might give up. It's not everything works, or sometimes it works for others and it doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Well, and so something that we talked about kind of leading up to this was some tools that you've used. And one was My Home IQ that has helped kind of keep past clients in the loop. Why would you think that's been an effective tool for you? And how does that help you stay relevant without being quote unquote salesy?
Yeah, you know, I personally struggle sometimes with past client follow up on a consistent basis. You know, the reason for checking in sometimes can feel insincere, and there's strategies to make that better. But for me, like for a long time, I made the mistake of not following up with past clients regularly. And you know, my coach once told me, you know, if you want to be their loan officer for life, then you have to be part of their life. And that really made me like say, oh shit, no wonder I've lost some people over time. But
Yeah.
my home IQ automates that process to an extent. It's one of those things that's like, hey, this is better than nothing, and it's something that, you know, the bank or the credit union or the mortgage organization, like, they don't just provide that. It's something that you have to invest in yourself. So for me, I don't enjoy it, but this helps me send something to them. It's automated, and then I can track actually who interacts with that, and that makes that follow up call a bit more lukewarm. If I want to see, hey, they interacted on that, I can call them and say, hey, you were playing around in my home IQ. I see that you were doing some recalculating on refinancing. Like, is there any questions I can help you with, or do you know anyone who needs any help with this kind of stuff? And that comes across as a little bit more top of mind than just, hey, how's it going? You know, it's your 1 year mortgage anniversary. How's it been? You know, like, me is a little bit stale.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's really smart. And then having that analytical data available to you to help reinforce the call, even and know, hey, this person was playing around here. I mean, that's incredibly valuable. And so, just a quick transition because
Agreed.
we didn't really give much context to kind of like how you got into the business here, but you were newer to mortgage kind of during those golden COVID years, right? Where loans were falling from the
Yeah.
sky and everything, and instead of chasing the refinance business, you really leaned into the purchase business. How did that decision really help you build deeper agent relationships?
Yeah, so I started in mortgage in roughly 2016. So I knew what I was doing by that time, but I had made a company transition just 12 months before COVID, and I was with a financial institution, and they don't let you take your database with you, and I had not yet really done a great job of figuring out how to like stay in front of my past clients outside of my normal company CRM. I didn't have a past database to refinance unless they knew how to find me. So while everyone else was, shoulder deep in refinances, I leaned into building those realtor relationships because a lot of those realtors that had strong relationships with other loan officers in my market, very successful loan officers in my market, they were too busy for them. They weren't answering their phone. Like there was just so many refinances that you really couldn't keep up. Anyways, I took that as an opportunity to really lean into building realtor relationships, answering my phone, making calls to prospect. And I would say that was one of the best decisions I've made in my career. And I was very fortunate in an unexpected way to build momentum in COVID and help myself financially during that time without, a shit ton of refinances.
Yeah, and that momentum seems to really just continue to carry forward to the point now where you're focused on continued growth. And really at that stage, we find this in common with a lot of people. You're at kind of those crossroads of delegation, right? Like, what can I get off my plate, put it onto someone else's to where I can stay focused on green activities or whatever it is that kind of is your quote unquote zone of genius. And for anyone who's listening, like, there's a lot of people that are probably in that same frame of mind right now. So, like, what are some of the things that you're trying to get off of your plate? Why is that important to you at this stage? And kind of what's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, and I could definitely use advice or mentorship on this topic. This is a learning process for me, but like it's really difficult for me as a control freak to let go of parts of the process that I enjoy. But so I'm focusing on delegating, like working on the loan applications. I'm trying to spend less time in my loan system. I use Encompass personally. I'm trying to spend less time in there. I certainly don't want to be chasing conditions. While even though that relationship with the customers often starts with me, they trust me. I have to trust my team that they know what they're doing and that they can be as likable and personable as I can when they go after those conditions, and coaching them to explain the why behind why we need this instead of just asking for something that's important. So they need to not sacrifice a personal touch, but it can't, it's not sustainable for me to be the personal touch for every part of the transaction. It just can't be done.
Yeah, I have this conversation over and over again. It's such a critical moment in an originator's career that is on this growth trajectory, because the fact of the matter is you built it from zero, right? Like, this business you built from the ground up, and now it's at this place where you might have to give up a part of what you've been doing for years that made it so successful and trust someone else to do it as good as you've been doing it, and it's very difficult to let go. So I feel you on that. It comes up a lot, don't worry. If you were to fast forward a year, like, what does, a year from now, what does the next version of your business look like? What is success for you a year from today?
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, like success for me is like I want to continue to grow my business. You like for me, I focus on 10 to 20% growth every year, and like that doesn't always happen. But I feel like if I follow the process and I continue to perform at a high level and I ask for the business, like that should sustain itself. I certainly want to continue growing and getting better at delegating. And I think the next step for me is, I want to get to that point where I can bring in, future loan officers and and kind of help them enjoy the fruits of their labor, the way that I have in this business. This is a great career. It's a great business. I love the industry. You have lots of flexibility. There's lots of demand as well, but you can enjoy the freedoms of family time, or finding time to get out and network during the week. And networking can be fun. You go golfing, or you go to lunch, or you go do activities together. So you're not chained to your desk or your phone. So that's really, for me, what I want to focus on the next year, is helping someone else enjoy what I've been able to enjoy in this business.
Yeah, well, I love that. I find that when someone new learns from a high producing loan officer, the likelihood that they will also be a producing loan officer dramatically increases. We see that pattern here on the lowdown over and over again. People who are at the top of their game started in the industry with someone who was in a very high volume environment. They came into a high standard environment. The top producer was doing a lot of volume, and if you were going to catch them, you needed to do that too. Versus kind of what you see as an average branch, where the top producer might be doing around 12 or 15 million. And while that's no disrespect to them, that's still very good business. But to come into an environment like that, you're not seeing the work ethic that it takes to do 100 million in volume. You're not seeing the work ethic that it takes to, and you're not seeing the frequency of files either, and learning at that higher rate of speed. So as kind of we wrap up, Gabe, if there was any advice that you would give someone listening today about just kind of where to start towards a journey of growth, what would you say they need to do now to really start taking those steps? Let's just set the stage. Let's say they're at 1 million a month. They know how to get a loan. They know how to get a meeting with an agent. They can structure files, but they want to get to where they're doing 5, 6, 8 loans a month. What would you say to that loan officer?
Yeah, I would say, like, you need to figure out a way to, like, stay top of mind. I think that's going to, like, farm your business for you 6 months down the road without you noticing that you're trying. Like, I always look back at 6 months ago, or years ago, and I always feel like, man, I didn't try as hard as I thought I needed to, or maybe I could have tried harder, but then you're still having a successful year. So I think it's really important that you really drill into those, like, be seen and be known. How can I do that? I want to make sure that I find a way that I'm in front of you on a regular basis, because if your loan officer, your go-to, doesn't answer, I want to be the next person that you think of. If you saw my post or my newsletter or my name just that random day, like, there's a really good chance that you're going to be that second call, and then that's your opportunity to leapfrog into that first spot.
That's great, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing everything with us today here on the lowdown. Thanks for being a part of this, man. It's always great to hear what top producers are doing. So, best of luck to you in 2026. And thanks for being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks, Connor. Appreciate you having me on the call. Have a good one.
You bet.
Bye.